Live from CNN Center, this is Connect the World.
Welcome to our second hour of Connect the World. I'm Lynda Kinkade. Good to have you with us. This hour, world leaders are congratulating Turkey's Recep Tayyip Erdogan for his unprecedented third term as president. So what does this mean for the country and its struggling economy? Also dodging debris in Kyiv, Ukraine's capital, seeing some of its most intense attacks since the start of the war. We'll tell you what happened in that Russian barrage. And a deal is on the table, but will the US Democrats and Republicans in Congress sign on? We'll have more on the race to avoid a government default. And Succession calls it a night. The powerhouse hit show about the powerful and power-hungry has just wrapped up. And we spoke with one of its biggest stars. Well, Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has secured another term. He already has governed for 20 years, and Sunday he defeated his opponent in a runoff with 52% of the vote. Mr. Erdogan says the most urgent topic ahead right now is to reverse Turkey's high inflation. And that now is time, the quote, to resurrect cities that were destroyed in February's earthquake. Lynda Bashir is joining me now from Istanbul, has been covering the election from the get-go. Good to have you with us, Lynda. So the opposition described this election campaign as unfair. They joined with opposing parties to defeat Erdogan. Despite that, he has secured a third term. Take us through his top priorities.
Well, look, there are a lot of concerns on the minds of voters ahead of this runoff election, not least the economy. That is certainly a key focus. President Erdogan has faced fierce criticism over his monetary policies, policies that people say are to blame for the rising inflation that we are seeing in the country, as well as the plummeting of the lira. So people are really struggling across Turkey, and there has been real backlash against President Erdogan for that. Despite, however, this criticism, President Erdogan has been clear. He plans to stick through with his vision for the country's economy. He believes he will see a return soon. And when we spoke to voters yesterday outside the AK party headquarters celebrating President Erdogan's victory, they said they also believe in his vision. They feel that this is a time for political stability. And after more than 2 decades in power, they feel President Erdogan is the person to deliver that stability. But of course, another key issue that President Erdogan will be grappling with is the aftermath of the earthquake, as you mentioned there. More than 50,000 people killed, millions more displaced, still living in temporary camps across the country's southeast. We've already seen the government pushing ahead with reconstruction plans across the region affected. President Erdogan doubled down on that commitment yesterday as well. He took to his victory speech to recommit his government towards providing permanent housing for those impacted by the earthquake, as well as loans for those who have been made homeless by the earthquake. And then, of course, he has a real focus on cementing Turkey's place on the world stage. Turkey is a key NATO ally. It's an influential power broker in the region. It has deep connections with the region, of course, particularly as a result of recent conflicts. Turkey very much involved in the conflicts in northern Syria, as well as in Libya, where its foreign policy focus has been for the last few years. And of course, the war in Ukraine. President Erdogan, over the course of the last year or so, has been positioning Turkey as a sort of mediator in this conflict, attempting to secure some sort of peace agreement between Russia and Ukraine. At this stage, we've seen success when it came to the grain deal. He was able to broker an agreement between Russia and Ukraine on that front. But of course, President Erdogan is continuing to focus on that, and he has said that he will maintain what he's described as a special relationship with President Putin, focusing on those relations between the two countries in line with his place as a NATO leader. Now, of course, there is concern around the state of democracy here in Turkey. That was a key focus for Kemal Kılıçdaroğlu, the leader of the opposition party defeated in this runoff. He says that the fact that this was such a close race, that it even went to a runoff, the first time for a presidential election here in Turkey, shows that there is a real divide in the country and that there is really hunger for change in Turkey.
All right, Lynda Bashir for us in Istanbul, Turkey. Good to have you on the story. Thank you. And we are going to stay on this story. And given his past policies, the question is, will Mr. Erdogan be able to turn the economy around? Well, for more now, I'm joined by Bila Baygis. He is an economist with the Turkish think tank Foundation for Political, Economic and Social Research, also known as CETA. Good to have you with us.
Thank you, Lynda. Thanks for having me.
President Erdogan described his win in this runoff election as a win for the people of Turkey. What will the people of Turkey get from Mr. Erdogan in the next 5 years?
Well, President Erdogan, he was a front runner, so he was expected to win. He was set to win, and he had a head start in the first round. I'm sorry. So there are actually a lot of reasons people opted for him again. First of all, President the incumbent president's support is mainly coming from Anatolian heartland, I would say. From the mainland Anatolia, there is actually a really huge, almost half of the population that is loyal to him. He has a really huge devoted vote potential. And part of it is also the recent social policies, such as the new housing projects, the defense, infrastructure, health, high-tech initiatives, including the electric vehicle chip production, actually also including the foreign policy attempts, focusing more on employment production. And all these policies, they did pay off, including the rising wages, retirement benefits. And starting from the first round, he got a really huge support from the people. And we could also add actually the increasing nationalistic sentiment, I would say, and also the fact that in the first round, the People's Alliance, it got actually a majority of the parliament. So the legislative body, it was already on the People's Alliance's side, Mr. Erdogan's side, and people opted for political stability, I would say. That's another critical factor. So people preferred political stability as well. And also President Erdogan's ability to read the situation and to play accordingly. He really believes in things he does, and he really does things that he promises, he says, and people do really appreciate that.
And I want to ask you, if I can, about the Turkish lira. Over the last decade, it's lost more than 90% of its value. And upon the re-election of Erdogan, it sunk to a new record low. Analysts predict it's going to sink even further under his government. Why that pessimism?
So, volatilities, including the high inflation rate, high current account deficit, and there are a lot of reasons for that. Part of it is rising U.S. dollar against almost everything, the tightening monetary policy in the Western world, in the U.S., in Europe, in UK. And there were also, of course, some domestic factors as well. Turkey's lacking in managing expectations, the communication, lacking in communication in its instruments, and also the expansion in monetary policy, I would say, decreasing interest rates, that also partly played a role. And the huge current account deficit, the external finance needs, all these factors, they put a pressure on Turkish lira. But looking forward, post the election, I would say Turkey and President Erdogan, they will probably balance a little more, and probably balance between the huge external inflation, exchange rate volatility, and also the domestic inflation with the high growth rates and employment that they have opted for.